right. Welcome, everybody, to the Owatonna Weekly Wrestling Podcast, Season 2, Episode 8. Binge them all if you want to. They're available on the Apple Network, on YouTube with the videos included and everything like that. So you can see this handsome mug right there. And speaking of, today, standing in for his father, senior coach Hovden, we have junior coach Hovden. Mr. Gabe Hovden here. Welcome.
Well, thank you.
It's good to have you here while your dad's in Hawaii.
Yes.
Is what I hear.
Yes. Been sending pictures and he's enjoying himself out there.
I bet he is. Nice. Well, and to start us off, I don't want to forget about our sponsor. We have the Flemke Insurance Agency, Ben Flemke and his team over there, who you'll also see them out and about at basically any community function, or big-time supporters of the Owatonna Wrestling program. And their advantage is that they do the shopping for you. They are basically your sports agents out there trying to get you the best possible deal on home, auto, commercial, whatever it is. They have a couple of dozen carriers that they're able to shop for you. So thank you to Flemke Insurance. Well, Coach Hovden, I want to go over kind of the last week of our competition, starting with last Thursday, February 9th. We had senior night at home against Chatfield, invited that buzzsaw to town.
Yeah, that was quite interesting to have them here, to have a smaller school show up and come and do what they did.
Yeah.
They came to wrestle. It was nice to see Trey Hiatt back.
Yes.
In that lineup.
Yeah.
That helped out a lot.
And it was, he had been practicing live for a little over a week before that. But I mean, we always say it, the only way you get in wrestling shape is wrestling. And
that is true.
Couple months hobbling around. Yeah, he had some panic in his eyes. Like,
Yep. It is very true. I mean, there's a different what's the word I'm looking for? Just being in shape and then being in wrestling shape.
Yeah.
And to be in wrestling shape, you running and riding a bike is not going to do it.
No. And I'm sure the nerves, the adrenaline, that'll drain you too.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Getting those jitters out under the lamp. Yep. Is your first match back.
Yep. So, coming off an injury. Yep. So then you have that thought in your head too.
Right.
To defeat that thought.
Especially a knee. You know? Like, is it going to hold up? He's, he was so excited and got the victory. And then they threw out basically a JV kid to Cael Robb, unfortunately, on senior night.
Yes.
Their good kid bumped up to 170 and kind of ran away a little bit.
Yep. Ran from Cael.
Yep. And then Kaden Keller. What a story. So Grant Lauer was sick last Thursday. And I'll just let you know. So Kaden Keller wasn't going to be at the meet at all that night because he wasn't going to be able to make weigh-ins since he's in driver's ed right now. But we realized he's taking driver's ed just down the hall in school. And Mr. Brushka, Aiden Brushka's dad, is leading it. And so we actually pulled him out of driver's ed to weigh in quick and then sent him back in full warm-up. I'm sure singlet was on underneath. He sat through the rest of class and then came up and wrestled with varsity for his first ever match. And
to get a win like he did.
Yeah.
That has to be a huge confidence booster. And to get that experience out on the varsity match, underneath the light, and come out with a pin.
Yeah, and two, they played a little bit of games with their lineup, and so they bumped away and forfeited to Blake Fitcher, and so their 220 ran up to heavyweight, thinking, well, that's an easy win. It's a freshman heavyweight I'm going against. And Kaden, I mean, it wasn't going to matter if it was first, second, or third period. He just looked like he was going to win.
Yeah, he was full throttle the whole time. It didn't look like he was even remotely tired. The other guy, he shouldn't have bumped up. I mean, he should have wrestled his own weight, but you go to run and you try and think you're going to get an easy win. Didn't pan out for that guy.
No. Yeah, Kaden, for a freshman is a full heavyweight. He's 275, between 275, 280. And what a story for him. He's a kid who, we've been working with him and monitoring diet and exercise and everything. And the work he's put in, every single day he's going with Grant Lauer and Coach Josh Woodrich and Coach Sorensen and all these hammers, and he just quietly gets the job done. He's taking shots now. Like, it is so cool to see his development.
Yes, the confidence from when I first seen him at captain's practice. till I talked to him after that match. His confidence is up there. He's going to be a true heavyweight, a contender. I believe he could be a contender if he keeps his work ethic up.
Absolutely. Well, that was fun. And being that it was senior night, we honored Captain Cael Robb, Mason Blum, who came back to the fold this season, which is awesome. And then our managers, Kamryn Fitcher, Skylar Krenzelok, Grace Nirk, and Katlyn Schubert. So had a nice reception then afterwards at Brick Megger Funeral Home. So thank you to Glenn, Cheryl, and Mike Megger for hosting some egg rolls and having a little party there after. And then we had a big old Saturday, and I ran into this coach taking in the second ever girls section tournament up at Hastings.
Yes, that was quite something to see. I'm glad they're evolving into a girls program.
Yeah.
It gives them more of a chance to wrestle just with the girls. They don't have to contend with the boys, and I think it was great. It was my first one going to a section meet for girls. And the two that did place, I got to see their matches, and they looked pretty good up and all the way through. And for only being the second time, I mean, still the nerves on that has to be through the roof too.
Yeah. So last year, to give you some context, we were doing sections 1 through 4 were together, and sections 5 through 8 were together. And the reason they split it up into 1 and 2, were a specific tournament, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, is because the participation exploded.
Yeah.
I know Isabelle, our 107, who took second, was in a bracket with 13 girls, and there were 14 at 107 on the other side.
Yeah.
Sections 3 and 4. So it wasn't like, oh, they're splitting up sections, there's only 3 per bracket or anything. Everyone had at least a 7, if not 8 person bracket that day.
And that's great. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So, like you were saying, we had 2 qualify for state. Isabelle Townley had a heartbreaker against Maggie Olson, that little Spitfire from Albert Lee. Had a really close match, and then did one of the hardest things to do in wrestling, and that's come back and defend your spot in a true second match after a loss.
Yeah. And that's hard, because now if you lose that next match, you're not going. The person that was at the third place match, which is good. They get a shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody should have to wrestle everybody. But it's good that you won that one.
Yeah, that was it. We keep saying for such a sweet, she was just on the podcast, I think, last week, and for such a sweet, mild-mannered person, we're trying to unlock, and we may have to do it Jason Schubert style, just absolutely smack her in the face.
I'll be out of that one.
Yeah, because when she gets mad, holy crap, her true second match, she was ticked.
Yeah, I've actually seen that in a captain's practice between her and her brother.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say who fared out of that one, but it was one of the points where I'm like, okay, you two are done wrestling with each other, and I had to separate them. But it was a good goal for them. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I have seen it only once, but I think that it needs to come out a little more.
Right. We got to unlock that kind of happy medium, not getting too crazy throwing punches. But And then 7th grader Aliah Fischer also qualified. The kind of her nemesis from Grand Meadow got revenge on her from the Pine Island tournament the week before in a very sophisticated move. It's really high. No, it was just a headlock, and she knew it was coming and almost defended it correctly. Just got caught, and then fought really hard for almost a minute.
On her back, fighting off that headlock.
Yeah. So I know that's not the way she wanted to qualify for state. She wanted to go out on top there. But maybe she'll get her again at state.
Yep, there's that opportunity. They either both meet in the winner's side, or they could both meet on the loser side.
Yep.
So there's opportunity to get another shot at her.
Right. Yep.
And I think she'll fare better on this one.
Yeah.
At the next time they wrestle, with the knowledge that all the coaching staff is giving her if she takes it and does what she does, and she'll be just fine.
Yeah. Aliah's a very well-rounded wrestler, and it takes something like that getting caught to beat her right now, and that happens.
Yep, she's on fire. I mean, when she was wrestling junior high for us down there, she's when she was wrestling the boys, she was not scared of any of them, and she went out and dominated on most of them. I'd say at least 90% of them she was beating on. And then when she would get to see that there was a girl at her weight, her face would just glow like, oh, I get to wrestle a girl. And she would, there was, I mean, it was more of it was a whooping she would put on the girls. So, but I'm glad she got pulled up and got this opportunity.
Yeah, it's incredible, her development. And then Precious Carter was there, a freshman for us at 145. Did not place, but took some major steps in kind of all ways. Her maturity, she took down almost 3 times this girl that pinned her in about 8 seconds up at Simley. And then had another kind of heartbreaker at the wire when had the girl pinned. I'm not going to talk about the ref, but that was a little frustrating. But also with her, you know, a relatively new wrestler, only her first-ish year, and ending a tournament, ending her season like that, you would think she would, you know, just be completely dejected or whatever. She wanted to wrestle more. So now she's excited. She got the taste.
Yep, she got the taste. It's now she knows what it's like.
Yeah.
And she, I mean, wrestling at sections. I mean, not everybody can actually say, I got to wrestle at a section tournament.
Yeah.
So good for her. Hopefully she sticks it out and, you know, keeps learning from the coaching staff.
Absolutely. Well, and then also that day we had the Big 9 JV Conference Championship. For the second year in a row, we took second. And also for the second year in a row, we got a non-scorer placed higher than one of our scorers. And so we got second kind of because of that. This year is because our scorer got concussed, Riley Krieger, and his kind of backup, Parker Casas, made it to the finals as a non-scorer. So, place winners, we had first Nathan Gronli, champion at 120. And then we had a bunch of second placers, Jacob Wilson at 107, Parker Casas at 132, Big Chuck Sikora at 170. And then some third placers, too, ended on a high note with Justin Gronli at 13, Trevor Townley at 126, Peyton Gleasing at 145. He's just improving every week. And then, big Kaden Keller at heavyweight, taking third. So had a really good showing there, and that bodes well for the future.
Yeah.
We have a lot of young faces.
And back to what you were saying, you had a non-scorer place higher. That just goes to show that anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah.
On a given day in wrestling, they're just because they might be better doesn't mean you can't beat them at that day.
Absolutely.
Depends on who shows up.
Yeah. Well, and then so this week it's we're continuing that postseason theme with team sections tomorrow night, February 16th at Rochester Mayo. They're hosting as the number 1 seed. We are the number 4 seed, which isn't fun to say, but at the same time, this is the draw we wanted. We match up obviously the best with Mayo, considering we're the only team to beat them in the section. We start off with Century in the quarters at 6 p.m. We should take care of business there and move on and wrestle at about 7 p.m. Against Mayo and embarrass them and make them cry in front of their home crowd.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And get to Saturday and finish it out on Saturday with a good day.
Absolutely. Well, that sounds good. And we're gonna keep you here for a couple of reasons. But first, we're gonna bring on someone we know very well, Coach Matt Kretlow, right when we come back. Stick around. All right. Well, welcome back to the Owatonna Wrestling Weekly Podcast. Coach Derek Johnson here with Coach Gabe Hovden, and also a guy that I have to call Coach for the rest of my life because that's just ingrained in my brain, Coach Kretlow. How are you today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me at this new podcast that I've never been on before.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. It's a little bit different. And I know for a fact that you're not a guy that likes to boast about himself or anything like that. We're going to ask you today to do a little bit about that, though. A little bragging, little trip down memory lane. But first, how about shout outs to the family? You got some serious athletes, including your wife and your family. What's that family dynamic?
All right. So my wife, Arla, and I have been living in Owatonna since 93, although I was a local. So I was born and raised in Owatonna. I met her at school and then drug her back after a while. But we do have 3 children. Oldest, Steph, is 25 now, I think. Creepers. Yeah. So she lives in Nashville. She is a nurse in the operating room at the Vanderbilt Hospital.
Oh, wow.
in
Good.
Nashville. Yeah. She was an athlete here in Owatonna, gymnastics, soccer, track, went to St. Thomas, was an All-American long jumper. And then now I was in the real world. I have my second daughter is Sydney. She's 21. She is at the University of Minnesota. She's going to be an elementary teacher.
Oh, great.
She's running cross country and track there.
Jeez.
And then I have a son, Drew, who is 18, a senior in high school here at OHS. Not exactly sure what he's going to do next year. My guess would be he may be going to Gustavus, play a little football there. He plays football and baseball here at Owatonna.
Yeah. So moving up to the college level, would he stay fullback or is it mainly defensive?
I think
side of the
mainly
ball?
probably a linebacker.
Yeah,
I guess.
okay. Gotcha. Yeah, he's got more of the body for a linebacker.
Yeah, he's hefty.
He's a thick boy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So he wrestled here for his freshman and sophomore years, and then decided wrestling kind of gave way to some other things here at school and
Sure.
the other two sports. So
Yeah, we could have used him at 220, especially last year.
you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. So, no, that's great. And, so how about yourself? You said born and raised in Owatonna.
Yes.
I see your name up on the walls. I see your picture up on the walls. Walk us through kind of Coach Kretlow's
Years
amateur
of wrestling.
Yeah.
What years did you wrestle here in Owatonna?
Oh, sure.
Well, I graduated in 87. So I'm one of the probably two classes of wrestling alumni that had three coaches in their 4-year span here at OHS. So I had Dick Black, the legendary Dick Black, for 2 years.
Yeah.
And then my junior year, we had Mike Kukas, an Apple Valley assistant that was here for a year. And then my senior year was the legendary Scott Davis's first year.
Okay.
So
Jeez, yeah.
three different coaches. Wrestled anywhere from 98 pounds as a freshman to 145 as a senior. I had a pretty, I would say, great. The career was fine. I made it to state one time as a senior and was one match away from placing.
Okay. So you said you had three different coaches.
Yeah.
What was that like, having three different coaches? How was practice every year? I mean, them 3 years, the last year of Coach Black, then Kukas, and then Davis. What was practice like in the difference between the three coaches?
So I would say so I had the very last years of Coach Black, and so he was a very, I would say, stringent coach, very hard-nosed, a lot of mat wrestling. You know, he came from like Britt, Iowa, I believe.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so for me as a young wrestler, kind of a scary guy.
I bet.
We became good friends after he retired, but those first 2 years was like nose to the grindstone. Let's wrestle. Yeah, real hard. Now, Coach Kukas, who came my junior year, brought a lot of, I would say, different training to the table.
Okay.
Like with Coach Black, we never did like outside running or lifting, and he was big into that. And it was starting to transition to, okay, we're not just going to wrestle. We're going to get together in the morning. We're going to do morning runs. We're going to get together and lift during and after some practices. Okay. So I would say much more modern, like it is now with Mr. Kukas. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, but we worked really hard. And so I think when Coach Davis came in, he was like trying to just kind of start garnering more participation
Okay.
And so more kids involved in wrestling. That was always kind of his at all levels.
Yep.
Right.
Let's get as many participants as we can, and the cream will rise to the crop, but we don't want to lose anybody.
Yep.
Right. And so I would say that my senior year was more, I would say, a laid back kind of wrestling, because he was just trying to feel his way
Okay.
Sure.
out those first few years.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was all interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. That is quite the dynamic.
Yeah.
Between those.
Yeah.
Oh,
I was pretty lucky.
Yeah. And then how about going on to Augsburg? How was your career up there?
Yeah. So I was what you would call, I think, a late bloomer, because I did throughout high school. I always was growing and jumping weight classes. I kind of settled in at Augsburg. Really fortunate, I think, that I was on like the cusp of a program that was about to really take a big time rise. So, and a lot of it was because of Coach Jeff Swenson, kind of legend. He was an alum, a legendary coach. He coached a few years at Rosemont, and then my freshman year was his second year at Augsburg.
Okay.
And so things were starting to roll. Felt like I was just in the right place at the right time, because I was okay. There was a lot of years after I graduated from Augsburg that I was like, I'm glad I didn't wrestle there now, because I wouldn't make the team. But
yeah, that legendary run they had.
Yeah.
During the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt really fortunate. We were kind of building throughout my career. But my senior year, we won the national title for the first time as a team. And I was a national runner-up that year, so I contributed to that, was a captain of the team, and kind of feel really proud that that was like the start of something really special going on there.
I like how you said you're a national runner-up and you probably wouldn't be able to make the team.
Well, you got to remember after me came some guys that
Some
probably
powerhouses,
shouldn't have been wrestling at that level.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Like Levesser and some of those guys. Yeah.
So you didn't place at state. You made it to state in high school, but yet you continued on competing and wrestling, and you ended up being a runner-up at nationals.
Yeah, I was a 3-time All-American, so I placed 8th as a freshman, 4th as a sophomore. Ironically, I did not place. I got upset early in my junior year. Got back to the placing round, what they would call the blood round.
Yep.
And lost.
Okay.
And then came back and got second my senior year.
Jeez.
Yeah. So I mean, basically saying you don't have to be a state champion to go and succeed in college level wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about. I mean, kids grow at such different rates nowadays, and if you just stick with it, continue to, I think, be committed to it, and then find, like me, the right place.
Yep.
Sure.
If you can find the right home,
Yep.
you can just do great things.
And up there at Augsburg, the school part, you probably enjoyed the school part rather than just going there to wrestle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a little community in the heart of the city in Minneapolis and South Minneapolis there. And the ironic thing was Coach Swenson came from Rosemont, where he was there for a few years. So he was pulling a lot of the Section 1 or Region 1 kids. So it was a lot of Southern Minnesota kids getting together and wrestle in this at this little school in Minneapolis.
Yeah, your own little community.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, well, and I know speaking of kind of sticking with it and everything like that, I know that Wade Westfall, friend of this show, talks about you a lot as being like, you just never know who's going to pop. Like, you can't call it at like 4th, 5th grade. It's about just persevering, staying with it, getting the mat time, and so like using you as like a shining example, or an Eli Ross, or like some of these other guys where you just can't. You think who's and sometimes they do pan out. Sometimes there are Brandon Mowens and Peyton Robbs that you just you knew back then, but other times it's just I do love this sport for the fact that you control your own destiny so much more than almost any other sport. It's, there's a weight class for you. You don't have to be, 4.3 speed to just win. It's just, the perseverance, sticking with it, and being willing to lean into your weaknesses and really work on things. And
mental toughness.
Yeah, it's just you and the other person, which is why I loved it.
Yeah.
I'm in control. I'm a control freak, and I want to control how I do. So, that's good.
That's
It's team.
totally what's
It's
unique.
team, but yet you control your own what you want to do for the team.
Yeah. I don't think there's any other sport that I can think of where two guys get put out in the middle of a circle with a light on them and say, go.
Yeah.
And at the end, someone gets their hand raised and the other one doesn't.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that teaches you a lot.
Yep.
It does.
And a lot of the times that you didn't get your hand raised, you still learn something.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Going back to my little college story, I learned more that junior year at the national tournament I didn't place than any other year I was there. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
Well, and then so Coach Davis lured you on back to Owatonna, and I'm sure Federated had something to do with it too. But what time did you get back to Owatonna to help out?
So I started at Federated in 1993,
Okay.
and that was in March. So wrestling season was about over.
Sure.
And so the very following year is when I started my high school coaching career here at Owatonna.
Gotcha. And so and you coached until when, basically?
Yeah,
I mean, on
I was
and off,
thinking
I know,
about
but-
that. Yeah, so I would say for the first 10 to 12 years, really almost pretty much every day.
Every day, yeah.
But then it started, I started having kids, and then Drew started wrestling in the U, so I
Sure.
kind of transitioned away, but was still involved in the program. I would say cold turkey out 2 years ago.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
Drew decided not to wrestle his junior year, it was kind of when I
Sure.
said, this is a good time for me to transition out as well.
Yeah, even though you promised me in the interview that you're going to be on my staff.
I see, you're
There's still,
totally
there's
right.
still
He
time.
did.
There's still time.
That's just my style. I was calling you out in the interview.
He
Like,
did.
you better be in my room.
Totally.
Yep. No.
That happened to me on my interview right away in the first season.
Yep.
I called out and he pulled out a contract for 8 years.
Yep. Blood only.
Yeah.
Mm.
But okay, so over that time and all your contributions, I'll just say, like, for people that don't know out there, Coach Kretlow was not the red in the face, screaming, like crazy intense. You brought like this just air of, we didn't want to disappoint you. I remember specifically working harder on days, not working harder necessarily, but you could feel the whole team rising to it. If you were running the practice and conditioning, because it was that, you have a dad presence where you just don't want it says more for you to just give a look than to ever yell anything. And I just remember the whole team having that, like, oh my God, I'm disappointing him, type of feel if they were screwing around. Cause we had some wild grades around me as far as behavior.
Yeah.
But
sure.
Yeah, but you were one of the only coaches that could control that. I'm just gonna say class of 2000 guys. Oh my God! But Coach Kretlow had that, that absolute gravitas to be able to kind of bring it all back and snap us into shape. So thank you for that. That was great.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think it's ironic you say that, because that's what I always say about Coach Swinson at Augsburg. Guys, like, that you're doing your job as a coach when your kids want to win for you more than they want to win for themselves.
Sure.
Then you've done it.
Yeah.
And part of that I would say that group, and maybe I was still wrestling a lot then.
Yeah.
And so I think that when you're grinding it out with them and they know that
You're putting
you
in
can-
the time too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that if you really want to, the next day you can grind it in harder.
Yeah.
You earn a little respect there.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say back in my era when I was there, and I think you've been it would have been your first year coaching. I would have been a sophomore, or a freshman, one of the two. And watching when I was not doing what I was supposed to be, but watching you with Nate Abrahams, you and Nate just going at it in the room. It was just like, geez, I'm glad I don't have to wrestle him. I'm not that big. I'm way too small.
It matters.
It's just watching. And then the next time that I actually sat back, and this was more into your later years of coaching, and I watched you and Coach Wade Disher, walk out of this room, and Patrick Mahan standing there. You're bleeding from your nose. Disher was bleeding from his nose. You were gimping out, and he was still standing there. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going against him. I just watched you two go after him, and it was just to see you be able to still do that. I mean, and you're probably about 35 at that time. That's not old, and to be able to go like that with a junior national champ, state champion, D1 wrestler, and you're still trying to hold your own against him. You did
Trying.
I mean, you stuck in there.
It got hard at the end.
Yeah.
The Russell Smiths.
Oh
Yep.
God. Yeah.
Oh yeah, those guys. And I was starting to age. And it got harder and harder. But it was really fun. I felt like I was fortunate when I was young. Like when I first got in the room, Jeremy Schubert was here, and I could scrap like I was in college still with him, and then Nate and Bohr and some of those guys.
Yep, I was always on the little end with Becker and Waltman.
But that was what was great about those teams is that we had at least 3 or 4 coaches that were scrapping with kids every day, and I think that makes a huge difference.
It does. It's good to be able to have a younger coaching staff.
Absolutely.
That is able to go more than just one match.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, that's why I keep kind of ragging on my dad. Like, where are all these, and they're starting to come in this year, like, where are all these federated marketing reps, that are, and we just had one in today. That was
I've seen that.
Recent grad from Ohio University, Coach Eager. And then we've had Coach Clarkin in. Zach Clarkin's been helping out once a week when he can. So, yeah, we're trying to get back to that point. I know Coach Megger is still in good shape, but that's exactly it. I mean, I owe so much of my development not to, like, the program in general, but to my own practice partners and guys like BJ Mariotti and Jeff Becker. And, still never took down Jeff Becker, ever. I mean, just ever.
He was a little bigger than you.
Yeah. Well, the calves. I mean, the calves were gigantic. But Mariotti was that type where, if I ran out of self-motivation, he's in my face reminding me of my goals and what it takes and that I'm fine, breathe through it. You have more in the tank, that type of thing. And so it took, a village of coaches. And I'm that's what I'm working towards is kind of building that back up because you just never know who's going to connect with who either.
Yep.
I'd like to think everybody listens to me and gets motivated by me and everything, but I'm a realist. I know that's not the thing. And not to mention there's expertise out there that I don't have as much of a wrestling geek as I am about techniques. So I've always had that kind of mid to late 90s, what I saw, and then what I saw before me too with those staffs, and having just a bevy of assistants that can just absolutely hammer, and you can kind of learn that way. So that was great. But how about fondest coaching memories, sir?
Well, I think I mentioned like that first year I was able to help Jeremy Schubert achieve his goal as a state champion. That was a really cool memory. And then, of course, the first team state title. Yeah. You only get to do that once for the first time.
Yep.
And when you finally achieve it after all the hard work, and it took us a while to get there. Yeah. But when we finally did, it's pretty special when you do stuff like that.
Absolutely. I forget, were you the one that smacked up Jason Schubert before?
No, I wasn't.
No.
That was
that
Becker.
Becker was doing it?
Yeah. That's
I
a
figured
little
it was
out
you
of
because
my
you were
mentality.
taller, but yeah.
Right.
And that's true.
Becker
That
had to
doesn't
get
fit
on
your
a-
personality.
Yeah, he had to get on a ladder.
Right.
to do, but
He's hanging from wires, slapping them up.
yeah, no, that was Jeff.
Okay. Gotcha. No, and that was a special year in for so many reasons. But yeah, like you said, I feel like it was very appropriate, the investment that was made in the late 80s into the program. And then me being in kindergarten that very first year where everything changed, where OWA had its own wrestling and stuff like that. And I then was a freshman on that first ever team.
Yep.
It was like, oh my God, that was you could just see that progression and everything of what, Davis and Phillips and the Hovdens, all these people, Dave Nelson.
All the work they put in.
Yeah. So
Steve LeCount.
LeCount, the Pecans.
The Pecans.
Yep.
Yep.
Just all these contributors. So
Yeah.
thank you for being a part of that and having such a big impact on, I know, my life, a lot of other wrestlers' lives, countless. So
You're welcome.
yeah,
was-
can't wait to have you back next year.
All right. And cut.
And yeah.
Where's the contract?
Yeah, you got the hood to kidnap him, put him in there? All right. Well, thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
You
And,
bet, TJ.
appreciate you having me on.
All
So,
right. Yeah,
awesome.
good to see you.
Nice seeing you.
And we'll be right back after this message. All right. Welcome back to Owatonna Wrestling Weekly podcast. One more time, I want to thank Flemke Insurance Agency. Ben Flemke and his team is there to be your advocate in the super fun world of insurance where you don't probably want to do your own shopping and get all those quotes and everything like that. Well, he geeks out about it. He's an absolute animal in hunting down the best possible deal for you. So, but then also we wanted to plug the season that's coming up right around the corner, and we have freestyle and Greco director right here, Coach Gabe Hovden.
Yeah, so we're trying to bring back, or my plan, I shouldn't say bring it back, but my plan to get the freestyle and Greco program rolling again here in Owatonna. I am now an empty nester. Like we were just talking off air, you kind of get bored. So you got to go back to your roots. So we're going to have it's about a 9-week program. It goes from March 21st. And if you qualify, you could wrestle up until June 11th. And I think that's regional nationals. If the high school kids qualify farther, at some point in May, they would have to start transferring up to the cities, to the juniors and cadet camp, and wrestle for them coaches. That's the whole special Minnesota Storm team. And if we have kids like that, I would be sending them there immediately. But it's just practices are going to be on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We haven't nailed it down to a complete time yet, depending on numbers.
Okay.
But our goal right now with the numbers we have, it's an hour and 15-minute practice, and it's basically warm up, technique, learn some throws, learn some turns. No conditioning, no strength training. They do that on their own, in their own program. So it's just basically mat time. Learn moves that you don't want to rely on in folk style. You want to rely on them in freestyle because the throws, the turns, but they're always nice to have in your back pocket.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that today after, I talked to the team at the beginning of practice because with having Coach Yinger here and what he does in freestyle and Greco too as a collegiate athlete, I thought of a few things that, talking about how moves may translate, not that you want to necessarily rely on them, but like thinking about like turning the corner with a crotch lift and how that turned into my main defense in folk style of getting the corner that way and hooking an ankle, not necessarily rolling through with the crotch lift, but at least getting it to keep his hips anchored and then keep scooting around the back. That became everything for me. And I wouldn't have had that without freestyle. Yeah,
because in freestyle, if you come in and take a bad shot and you don't finish immediately, you're going to go for a ride.
Right.
And you might think you end up on top, but you're only getting 1 point, where the guy that you actually took down just scored 3 points on you by throwing you.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's the advantage of learning to be aggressive the whole time doing a takedown.
Right. Yeah. And keeping the hips low, finishing that
Good
way.
position.
Yeah. It's in this scramble culture, especially, let's say, parents of younger wrestlers, It's become such a kind of a scramble sport
Yes.
in the last 20 years. And I feel like freestyle really helps you hammer home being a lot sharper on takedowns, because it is so easy for the defender to just expose quick and get the 2 points.
Yep.
And so if you're truly covering the hips, if you're staying down, finishing better, that's going to translate to folk style too, because then no more stalemates.
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Yeah, you're not just sitting on a leg. You're mentally ready, thinking, oh crap, I got to finish this. You're going to continue to fight for that move rather than, oh, I got it, I'm not in good positions, I'm just going to hold on, and then we'll start over.
Right. Well, and so that's the practice structure. What are you thinking about as far as competition?
Competition, there is going to be, from what I've heard, this is my first year back doing it, so I'm still waiting for the schedule to come out. But from what I've heard, there's tournaments on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. My philosophy for this year is we're going to go to one tournament
Per weekend.
Yeah, the season's long enough. This is supposed to be, and freestyle to me, until you're a junior or cadet, if you make that storm team, then it's serious.
Yep.
Now, if you're not on the storm team, you don't want to be on the storm team. You don't want to go that far. It's for fun. I mean, I don't want any weight cutting. Right. It's all open. Gosh. It's all open tournaments. So yeah, the older half has weight brackets. Younger half, it's kind of pile them together, I think.
Yep. Still pretty loose.
It's pretty loose on the weights. So it's one tournament a weekend, and from last I remember, you go there with a 4-man bracket, and that's all the way through, all ages, and you wrestled three matches, and it's not a 45-minute wait in between matches. It's 15 minutes, so you get in and get out of there. You go have some fun at a tournament. You get to see some really good wrestling. I mean, you can see 2 real good guys get tossed around. You can actually see a state champion who's never wrestled freestyle before, and some kid that's all he does is wrestle freestyle all year, or, in folk style, but he never made it to state, beat a state champion in freestyle. It's just if you know how to position yourself in freestyle.
And that's the cool part about those tournaments too, is like a crowd will gather around a mat when it's like, hey, he's a state champ from Jackson, and here's another state champ from Simley or something, just 2 kids that normally don't go against each other or something like that. And like the buzz is in the gym. That's kind of cool. It sucks when you lose when there's an audience like that. Thank you, Apple Valley Paskey. But it's the atmosphere is like, we're all here for the entertainment. As a wrestling community, it's not like our team versus your team or anything like that.
And we will not do no team freestyle tournaments. Sure. It just drags it out way too long. I want to I want these kids to be interested, want to come have fun and learn. Yeah,
that's awesome. So, to all the parents out there, any wrestlers watching this too, I'm going to keep harping on my high school room and the middle schoolers that I see at practice at night. It's so important. What you do in the off season is so important. And I'm not asking anyone to be full blown wrestling 12 months out of the year, anything like that. Just, come get that mat time. It's such a sport of instinct. And the only way you get there is with time. We just keep talking about mat time. So even if you don't do the competitions, but you're doing practice, get that mat time in.
And our registration's online. And also, it's free. You just got to fill out the registration forms. If you go to any tournaments, you have to have a USA card. Sure. But that's $25.
So they're going to OwatonnaWrestling.com.
I think so.
The OWA site. Yep. And free. And then just paying for the Min USA card, basically.
Is it. Okay. And that card gets you into the tournaments, and you can, if you want, you can train hard enough to make it as far as you want. I mean, look at, prime example, Paint Rob, look where he's at.
Right. Yeah.
He went out and he traveled and qualified for all these tournaments. I do know I've got, Brandon Moen, a junior, national All-American for freestyle and Greco. I've already talked with him. He's already committed to come in, 1 or 2 nights and show his favorite freestyle move.
Sure.
And he went out, started his career, D1 wrestler. And then they cut the program. Sorry for him. They
Right.
cut his program with, 20 days to actually sign at another college.
Right.
So he ended up going to Mankato State and had to injury retire. There's opportunities with this freestyle that just will get you wherever you want to go.
Absolutely. Nice.
And it's fun.
It is.
I have fun in practice. We're not we learn, but we're not yelling and screaming.
Right. Yeah. The regular season is, like you said, it's long enough.
Yeah. I sometimes I come in eating a candy bar and have candy bars or, treats or, just.
Yeah. Bring a friend.
Bring a friend and just hang out. Not hang out, but come in and wrestle.
Right.
You'll learn something that day.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for filling in for your dad there. And thank you for, like I said, stepping up. You're always such a good, you have the captain's practice thing down pat. Like everyone looks forward to that. You do such a great job. We got you into the middle school program again this year, and now you're tacking on freestyle Greco season.
Well, I'll say that captain's practice. I don't know why they like me there so much because I don't give them a break.
I was about to say, yeah, you run a very tight ship.
There is no. They get like 3 minutes out of an hour and a half. To go get a drink of water, and they can use their 3 minutes. Either they get 3 minutes or 3 1-minute time limits to go. And before the season, last year, you're doing captain's practice. It's like the season just got over, and you're asking about if I'm going to.
Right. Yeah.
It's brutal too. It's a
boot camp.
To try and get your heart rate up before you get a hold of them.
Yeah, I don't want anybody puking first week of
I
season.
take care of that.
Yeah, you get that out of the way. So that's great. Well, thank you much. Thank you one more time to Flemke Insurance Agency and the OWA and the wrestling community. Can't wait to see you at sections. Take care.